Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ground and Pound cast. Thank you for coming back to listen to us. This is our third episode. Today, my co-host, my normal co-host, Rick, was not able to make it. So I have a good friend of mine that I've known since we were kids, Roy. Roy, tell everybody hi. Introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so Roy and I go way back. We grew up together, and he's also a big fan of the sport. He comes to watch his fights with us a lot, so I figured he'd be a great person to have on as a guest. And since Rick couldn't make it today, I thought Roy would be the perfect person to fill in for him, so I have him, and we're going to talk about the fights. Yesterday morning, we had fights early in the morning because they took place in China, so I don't know if a lot of people tuned in for those. I woke
Way too early.
Way too early. I woke up at 6:30 a.m., immediately went and turned on my TV just to watch Aljamain Sterling walk out, which was the second to last fight of the night. So, yeah, I missed the rest of the card, but I did see some commentary on some of it. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and I think we could first start. Actually, before I get into that, what did you think of the fights overall? What do you think is worth tuning into? Maybe going back and watch the replay, where there's some pretty entertaining fights. What you saw, Roy?
Honestly, I wasn't that impressed with anybody this week. It was a big surprise that Johnny Walker had the upset, but he didn't do anything that was impressive. I'll wait for my commentary until we actually talk about the individual fights, but nothing jumped out at me this time where I went, wow, I have to see that again.
Right, and we've seen that with cards. And sometimes I've seen this before where I'll tune into a card where it's nobody. I look at the fight card and it's no names I recognize, or maybe very few names I recognize, and I'll watch it anyway. And sometimes I'm surprised. Just because they're not a known name doesn't mean they don't give you entertaining fights. But then sometimes you have big names like Sergey Pavlovich that you expect a lot out of, and they don't impress. Sometimes that's the way it goes. And, a good example of that, on the prelims, it's crazy that this guy's on the prelims of a Fight Night card in China, when not long ago, this guy was a main event, or not main event, but a main card fighter. That's Michael Pereira, or as we say, Pereira in America, because we can't do Pereira correctly. No relation to the other Pereira, Poatan Alex Pereira Pereira. Michael, I think some people pronounce it Michel. I've heard multiple ways people pronounce it. Us Americans, we just don't know how to pronounce Brazilian names properly. We apologize. Michael Pereira, once upon a time, was considered a very hot commodity in UFC. Whenever you look at back in 2022 up to 2024, he had 4 fights in a row where he got fight of the night or performance of the night bonuses because of how exciting his fights were, and all of those were wins. And he was on a pretty long win streak. I'm looking at, it looks about like 8 or so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights in a row, winning fight of the night, performance of the night bonuses. This dude was just on a tear, and since then, he's on a losing streak after all of those fights where he got bonuses, and he is fallen down the ranks so much that where he was before on the main card, on the main portion of the card, on pay-per-views, racking up all the bonuses, now he's on the prelims of a fight night in China. Talk about one of the biggest downfalls we've seen. Hopefully he could bounce back. This show, we're not really trying to turn it into tearing down fighters. We have a lot of respect for what they do, but it's just crazy, like how far you can drop in just a short amount of time. You got to keep those wins coming in, because it doesn't take a lot. Just a few bad performances and you're on the way out. You're close to being forgotten. And speaking of that, you could look at on the main card of this fight, a guy who once upon a time was on a killer tear, just first round knockout after first round knockout, just the tear of the heavyweight division. And now he's on a fight night and not doing that well in his last few fights either. And that's Sergey Pavlovich. What do you think about that fight, Roy?
So I'm going to start by saying that Sergey finds a way to win. Even though he seems punch shy at this point and timid, he is landing enough to score the points to eke out a win. I don't know if this new, more conservative Pavlovich is what the division needs, though. right now we need the excitement of that one punch knockout power in the division. And Waldo's got a heck of a chin, but Sergey didn't really lay into him at any point during the entire fight with something that could reasonably be expected would be a knockout when it was thrown. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like he's playing a safe game, and it's number one, it's not entertaining. Number two, playing that safe game it's only going to work for you up to a certain level, and it's not really going to press you either. And that's another thing. Like, you got to look at the matchmakers and Dana White and all these people. Like, just because you're winning doesn't mean that you're going to really move up the ranks whenever you're giving us performances like that. You have to wow us a little bit, you know. If you have a guy who's like 2-1 in his last 3, and his one match that he lost was still a barn burner and it was close, and the 2 that he won, he devastated them, versus another fighter who's 3-0 in his last 3, but it's like he's squeaking by, being gun shy, trigger shy, and just barely getting by. They're not going to move up as much. It really is. It comes down to, how much are you pulling in, how many eyes are you getting on our product. If you're going to fight like this, do we think that you're worthy of fighting someone that's way above you, or should you be the person that someone below you is trying to fight on the way up? If you're not wowing people, if you want to get to the title, you want to start fighting the main guys, I don't think fighting timid like that's going to help.
Well, being exciting is part of the big draw for anyone in the UFC. Look at Michael Chandler. Guy's won what? 1 out of his last 5?
Something. I think in his UFC record, he is 2-5 total since he left Bellator, if I'm not mistaken.
But he comes out and fights his rear end off every single fight, and it's exciting. It's not necessarily a high IQ play, but it's exciting.
Yeah, and he's still on the main card fighting ranked people, even though he's lost the majority of his fights lately.
Yeah, and I think that Pavlovich isn't that great a boxer. He's landing the points that he needs to right now, but the X factor that put him in the title talk recently was for knocking people out.
Right.
He came at weird angles. He brought real power behind every punch, and it was exciting to watch. And I'm glad to know that he can go 3 rounds and his cardio will hold up. I just want his confidence back in his hand.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that kind of is the double-edged sword of being a heavyweight fighter, because to give that kind of output, every time you deliver any kind of offense, you're dropping your defense. That's just the nature of physics. If I'm swinging at you, that means that hand is not there to protect my face. So the more you're swinging, the more you're leaving yourself open. So it's one of those things you kind of have to find that right balance. But in the heavyweight division, it's that double-edged sword. Like, if the more of a knockout artist you are, the more you are susceptible to getting knocked out as well. So I think that whenever you're on that hot streak, I can't remember how many it was in a row where it was all first-round knockouts, he had that confidence because, like, I just go out and do it. I could just go out and do it, and I do it over and over and over. And he just kept on doing it for years. And then he was in the interim heavyweight title match, and it didn't play into his favor. And to be fair, if Tom Aspinall would just been lacking just a little bit, just a millisecond shorter, it could have turned around the other way, and it could be a completely different title picture that we're looking at now. But since
Sergey clipped Aspinall hard.
Yes, he did. He stunned Tom. Tom kind of, he reacted to it. Tom even admitted, he goes, yeah, he stung me once. And so Tom slowed down. He's like, all right, let me get back on track here, not let this guy hit me. And then after he caught Sergey, it's like Sergey is like, well, I don't want to open up too much because I don't want to get hit. And that's one of those things, like, as a heavyweight fighter, you have to understand that is the nature of the business that you're in,
That's a risk that you've got to be willing to take to fight at the highest level.
Even
if you show me a guy who's undefeated in their career, I'm going to tell you 9 times out of 10, including Khabib, they didn't fight the best competition.
Right.
But in heavyweight, if you fight the best competition, you're going to get knocked out eventually.
Right. It's just, that's the way it is. Like, that's the reason why Stipe Miocic is considered the greatest heavyweight of all time because he has the longest title run as far as title defenses go, not necessarily length of time. Cain Velasquez has length of time, but if you're talking like title defenses, he has 3. That's the record at heavyweight in the UFC, at least, not other divisions like Pride. Fedor held it for like forever, but he's a freak of nature. But
Fedor was just simply the best heavyweight that ever existed.
I agree. But Stipe Miocic is considered the greatest heavyweight champion of all time in the UFC with 3 title defenses. 3 is like, it's a decent title run. I mean, you get like 1 or 2. That's usually what you see out of people. You know, then you have the ones that are just really good who go on long tears like Anderson Silva, GSP, Demetrius
You're never
Johnson.
going to see an Anderson Silva or GSP type title run out of the heavyweight division.
Yeah, you can't. So that's just the nature of the beast when you fight at heavyweight. You know, you look at Derek Lewis, who has the most knockouts in UFC history. If I'm not mistaken, he holds that record. But how many times has he also been knocked out? I could look it up real quick.
But Sergey is getting by right now. Waldo, he didn't really land anything. It's like he spent the whole fight trying to find his range. Watching him and Aljamain was almost like watching the exact same fight play over because neither of them ever figured out the distance to land a solid punch.
Right. For the record, Derek Lewis has 24 knockout wins. This is not just UFC. This is overall career. 24 knockout wins, but also 7 knockout losses.
Yep.
So that's heavyweight for you. Yeah, Stipe Miocic, the greatest heavyweight champion of all time in the UFC with a whopping 3 title defenses. So maybe we'll see Tom Aspinall break that, but that could be for another podcast. We could discuss that. You did mention that Aljamain Sterling fight. Man, that was painful to watch.
Yeah, Aljo isn't going into title contention with that kind of performance.
He says he wants to get put in the title contention. I think he did admit there's probably 1 or 2 people ahead of him, but yeah, he wants to get put in the mix to fight Volkanovski since he's no longer in 135 because his buddy's running 135, Merab. Man, off of that performance, you better impress me with something else other than that. And I'll say another thing. I'm very disappointed in Brian Ortega. I know he did have a bad weight cut. That's the reason why they had to fight at a catch weight of 153. They're basically fighting as lightweights instead of featherweights. But it was almost like Brian Ortega didn't want to be there. Like I understand Brian Ortega kind of has a style where he's not a striker first. You know, he might every now and then put together a few decent combos to like set up a takedown or something. Sometimes he baits people into taking them down just so it could go to the ground, and then he'll set up his jiu-jitsu, which is really, really good. He has fantastic jiu-jitsu. But in this fight, it's almost like he didn't want to be there. And I know Aljamain Sterling is a wrestler, and I think maybe Sterling knew that, being the fact that he's a wrestler and knew that Ortega is more of a jiu-jitsu guy, that he's like, maybe I shouldn't do my normal game of taking this guy down because it's kind of what Ortega wants, so I'm just going to stand and strike. And Ortega looked like he just did not want to be in that ring. Like his body language, his facial expressions, it's like when I wake up on Monday morning and I go to work and I have a whole bunch of tasks that I don't feel like dealing with, the same look on my face is basically what it looked like looking at Ortega's face. Like he did not want to be there. He got clipped in the eye one time and he's like, oh, stop the fight. It was an eye poke. And they wound it back and they're like, no, it wasn't an eye poke. You got hit in the face with the knuckle and it was just really hard. And Herb Dean stopped the fight. A lot of people were really upset about that, to let him recover almost as if it was an eye poke, but it wasn't. Like if it was a legal strike and you were hurt and you can't continue, that's called
the end of the fight.
That's called a TKO where I come from.
Yep.
But no, Herb Dean let him recover. Now it didn't matter because Aljamain Sterling was still able to win, but I think Herb Dean messed up on that one.
I agree, but Herb Dean's one of the greatest to ever call a fight, so you got to give him a little slack from time to time. I'm sure he thought it was an eye poke.
I promise you I have at least one listener. I don't have many listeners yet. This is a very new podcast, but I do have one listener that will disagree. He is not a big fan of Herb Dean, but hey, I have mixed feelings. I've seen him actually do really well, and I've also seen him make some gaffes as well. Refs are going to do that. I have definitely seen worse reffing out there. But that's another topic. Maybe I'll save that for another podcast episode. We could talk about problems we have with
refs of all
reffing.
time.
Dude, I have one that I can't stand. I don't want to go on a tangent talking about that because I think that would be a great topic for another one. But I hear a lot of people talking about good refs here, bad refs there. But there's one name that people don't mention enough about their reffing, and that's Dan Miragliotta. I think that is actually the worst referee. I could tell you time and time again where this dude has screwed up. I've even seen him do bare knuckle boxing, reffing over there, and I'm like, why are people in this guy ref? Like, he is awful. But again, that's another story, and that could be a great topic for another episode. Herb Dean, I don't think it's that bad. I've seen him make some mistakes. Go ahead.
My worst ref of all time was Yamasaki.
He was pretty terrible, and that's the reason why he's no longer allowed to do this. I don't know if he refs at all anymore anywhere else. I'm not sure. I don't follow him, but he was pretty
know.
We'll
terrible. Research it for another episode.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. I don't research him. Yeah, my problem with Dan Miragliotta is he wants you to be borderline dead or comatose before he calls a fight, stops it. Like, bro, his family's already starting to look into his will before, he decides, all right, that's enough, stop punching him.
And that's an important thing, because a big thing that a UFC has over, say, boxing right now is that it's never had a death from the ring.
Right. If it does happen, Dan Miragliotta
going, because if it happens, we'll be back in Congress with a senator calling it human cockfighting again.
Right. Well, he's no longer living, so it'll have to be a different politician.
There are others.
That. Oh, I know.
There are others.
But the one that was leading the charge in that movement is no longer with us. But if a death does happen in MMA in the ring, Dan Miragliotta is going to be the ref when it happens. I promise you that.
I can agree with that.
So, but it definitely wouldn't have happened in that Aljamain Sterling versus Brian Ortega fight because neither one of them were really doing a whole lot. Sterling, he clearly won that fight, but he was just, it looked like a light sparring match, like a light kickboxing sparring match. He was just coming, a couple of kicks here, a couple of punches there. He wasn't really doing anything. The one punch that hurt Ortega, where he was acting like it was an eye poke, it was just the angle of it. The knuckle caught the corner of the eye. But it was like, there was nothing like, oh, look at this. Oh, this is exciting, man. He got a couple of takedowns towards the end that amounted to nothing. So,
which, talking about Ortega looking like he didn't want to be there, for a jiu-jitsu guy, he looked freaking helpless on his back.
I know, right?
He didn't try to climb the cage. He didn't go for a submission.
No, he was trying to survive, it was like a person who does jiu-jitsu but learns basic closed guard work to keep, as a defensive tactic, to keep them away from punching you too much. He's basically just doing that. It'd be like a wrestler using closed guard, or a boxer who trains a little bit of MMA using closed guard. That's what it looked like. I train jiu-jitsu, and I'm by no means an expert. I've said this on the last episode. I'm just a blue belt, which is one above white belt. There's more that I don't know than I do know. There's a lot of technique I still have to learn, and even I was looking at that come on, Ortega, you're better than this. This is not, you are one of the best. 'Cause he is. If you look at his record, Ortega is, I'd put him at the very least top 5, maybe even top 3 jiu-jitsu practitioners currently in MMA. That I can't say that off that last performance. I was like, dude, it really looked like he didn't want to be there. He had a bad weight cut. I honestly think his mind wasn't there. I'm just kind of like I see it. I think that if he could have just walked away from the match and not had any, negative consequences because of it, I think he would have. It looked like he just didn't want to be there yesterday.
Yeah. And on Sterling, he's got to figure out what he wants behind his punches, because he measured his distance 100 times during that fight and still didn't manage to land anything that I consider significant.
Right. He's a typical MMA wrestler who focuses more on the grappling than the striking. He learns just enough striking that he could put together the basics decent enough. But at the end of the day, he's not a striker. And because he's not a striker, but he didn't want to get in a grappling match.
If he's going to try to stay on his feet, he's got to focus.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And really, every MMA fighter should at least get as good as they can. If they want to primarily focus on one, they need to at least get pretty decent at the other. And I've seen too many times where it's not like that.
Well, that's like Chimaev. We all know he's a wrestler, but we've also seen him put people out on his feet.
Right.
Focus on what you're really good at, but be decent at everything else, especially if you intend to use it.
Right. Exactly. So I think it's about all there is to say on the Sterling and Ortega fight. I mean,
yep. Now we're on to Johnny Walker versus Zhang Mingyang.
Zhang Mingyang. So a little backstory on Zhang Mingyang. He was on a 12-fight first-round finish streak. 2 of them were submission. All the rest were by knockouts. In the UFC, he was 3-0. Was 3-0. All by devastating knockout. One was TKO where he fought Lionheart. His name is slipping my mind. Come on. This is his last fight that he had before this one. Anthony Smith. And it wasn't like a stone cold knockout, but it was like he got him down the ground and got on top of him and landed some of the most hellacious elbows I've ever seen and left him, Anthony Smith, that is just an absolute bloody mess. But before that, he knocked out Ozzy Diaz and Brenson Ribeiro, if I want to pronounce it the American way. It'd be like Ribeiro probably, because it's a Brazilian guy. Yeah, just nasty knockouts. All 3 of his fights in the UFC. Performance of the night, performance of the night, performance of the night. 3 in a row. This guy was on a killer streak. To be fair, all the fights he had before that on this long streak that he put together were a bunch of no-names. But still, just looking at his highlight reel, this dude was an absolute monster. There's a lot of hype behind him. And I told a lot of people, I said, this guy could be the next threat to the light heavyweight title picture, because you got Alex Pereira and Ankalaev going back and forth in the title. The next 2 people in line have already both lost to Alex Pereira. So, who would be the next big name to challenge for the title? And I said, this guy, Zhang Mingyang, is probably going to be that guy, because he just looks absolutely unstoppable. Johnny Walker, who is a pretty good knockout artist himself, is also known for being knocked out a lot. He, just like we talk about with the heavyweight division, if you have good output, you're probably also dropping your defense from time to time. You can get knocked out a lot. Johnny Walker's a guy with some great knockouts in his highlight reel, but also some low lights where he has had his lights put out multiple times, and he looks like a cartoon character when he gets knocked out because of how chinny he is, how much of a glass jaw he is. And I told everybody, there is no stinking way that Johnny Walker is going to survive 1 round. Maybe survives 1 round, but I highly doubt it. I think it's going to be a first-round knockout. My buddy Rick, the other voice normally on the Ground and Pound cast, he was saying it's going to be a second-round knockout for Zhang Mingyang. And we are both wrong, because Johnny Walker rallies in the second and gets a solid TKO win, upsetting everybody, destroying a lot of parlays in the mix. That's what happens, man. In the sport of MMA, you just never know what's going to happen.
Well, Zhang didn't know how Johnny Walker prepared. You probably don't know either. He watched the Karate Kid trilogy, the original 3. And what he took away was, if your opponent can't walk, they can't fight.
Sweep the leg, Johnny.
Yeah, sweep the leg, Johnny. Let's take this guy's leg out. But really, who could have predicted that on the second calf kick, his leg would give out?
Right. And I'm glad you pointed out, I'm so glad you pointed out second calf kick, because I actually think that's very important. I heard a lot of people saying, I even, Bisping said it whenever he's doing the interview to Johnny Walker, it's like, all it was just one single leg kick, just change it. It wasn't one single leg kick. Johnny Walker landed one leg kick, and he saw Zhang reacted to it. He didn't start limping hard, but he kind of stumbled a little bit and had a look in his face like, that sucked. And so Johnny Walker, very rare that you'll hear me say this, Johnny Walker showed a moment of high fight IQ, and he was like, well, I'm going to do that again, and goes right for it, a second leg kick, and that second one actually made Zhang start limping. And when that happened, there's blood in the water. Johnny Walker's all over him, just finishes him off. It's a pretty solid finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Give him props for jumping in and realizing the opportunity that was there. Now, if you were watching the rest of the fight, Zhang had pretty good control of that fight till he kicked his Achilles calf.
I had Zhang winning the first round. It wasn't like a
Yeah.
dominant, like it wasn't like a 10-8 or anything. It wasn't completely one-sided. It was back and forth, but I still felt that Zhang won it. Johnny Walker, I thought, was actually doing a pretty good job of keeping his hands up and keeping his defense up, because Zhang is known for his elbows. And even standing, like I mentioned when he bludgeoned Anthony Smith, those were on the ground elbows. It was ground and pound. But even standing, he likes to set up elbows, hit you really hard with them. And Walker's doing a really good job of avoiding those, keeping his hands up. He got caught with a few of them, but he blocked a lot. He was able to slip away from some of them. He was pretty good with his range, making sure Zhang didn't control the range. Zhang, I think, controlled it more than he was controlling it, but he wasn't letting Zhang run it the whole time. Walker was able to move around a little bit and not take too much damage, and then just rallied in the second. Now, this was one of those picks I told everyone there's no way Walker's going to win this one. First round KO. And it reminds me of all the other times where I've been very confident there's no way this guy's going to win, and this guy won anyway. It's happened to all of us. If you watch MMA a lot and actually do predictions, it happens. So this is really just a good example of, like, in the sport of MMA, you really never know what's going to happen. Like, anybody could beat anybody, more or less. I mean, there's a few pairings where I could say these guys could fight 100 times in a row and it's still going to be the same result, but those are rare. At any given moment, upsets could happen. So what are some fights you could think of where you just knew it was going to be one way, but it turned out another way?
Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva. It is my biggest gripe in the history of MMA that Chael tapped at the end of with 2 minutes left in the last round.
No, you don't understand. That just means Chael lost a round, not the whole fight. In what universe do you beat up a guy for like 21 minutes? They wrap their legs around your head for 8 seconds. They declare him the winner. That
in a real fight, because if Anderson did that in the streets, you're dead. He's not letting go.
Exactly. Nah, that one really surprised me. I mean, even though I thought Anderson Silva was going to win, and Anderson Silva did win, it still really surprised me how well Chael did. But as far as like being confidently wrong, my pick was a more recent one, just a couple years ago. That was Sean Strickland beating Israel Adesanya. That one blew my mind because Israel Adesanya was second greatest middleweight of all time, probably still is if you're looking at like title record history. He was very close to getting up to Anderson Silva's record, a few fights away from probably be considered the greatest middleweight of all time. And Sean Strickland was a guy who had a pretty solid winning record, but he beat mostly nobodies. And then when he fought anyone good, he would lose. He got knocked out cold by Alex Pereira. There was that fight with Cannonier that a lot of people thought he should have lost. It was a split decision that a lot of people think the refs got wrong, or I'm sorry, the judges got wrong. So I look at him, I'm like, he's a decent fighter. You know, he's a pretty good fighter. Maybe like title contention worthy, maybe barely, but not really. Probably more of like a good gatekeeper. There is no way he'll beat Israel Adesanya, who is probably on record to be the greatest middleweight of all time. There's no way that someone like Sean Strickland would beat Israel Adesanya. I did not watch that pay-per-view because I had a lot going on that night, and I'm not going to buy every UFC pay-per-view because they're pretty expensive. That's why I can't wait for the Paramount deal, but that's another topic. So I only buy the cards that really interest me. I'll just kind of catch the replay later on or read the results. That's when I'm like, I'm not going to watch this card. I already know how it's going to end. I know Israel Adesanya is going to get another title defense on his record. Sean Strickland is going to take another loss because he's fighting someone good for once. You know, just like any other time he fights someone good, he's going to lose. And my son texted me, so I can't remember what it was. He texted me something that was non-fight related, and then he ends that text with, "Oh, and by the way, Sean Strickland is your new middleweight UFC champion." And I was like, "Wait, what?" He's messing with me. He's joking with me. He's pulling my leg. I was like, "LOL." He's like, "No, seriously, Sean Strickland is your new UFC middleweight champion." I'm like, "No, he's not." And I went and pulled up the internet on my phone real quick and opened it up, and I saw that he completely one-sided dominated Israel Adesanya, and I was like, excuse me? What? What universe are we in?
Speaking of Sean, you know they're going to live stream his anger management, right?
Man, they better. They can make a lot of money doing that.
I want him back in the octagon as soon as possible because I'm dying to see him wrestle Makachev or Chimaev.
Right. I would sooner pay to watch his anger management than I would pay to watch Power Slap.
Yeah, I would pay to watch his anger management more than I would pay for the next 3 UFC cards. But
and that's saying something because we got some really good pay-per-views coming up. We'll be covering that on a future episode.
Oh, now we have the big news.
Speaking of anger management, someone who definitely needs it. So for those of you who don't tune in to daily news in the MMA world, and you could also say this is pro wrestling news, I actually see it popping up more on the pro wrestling news circuits than I do the MMA news circuits. It involves both. So very messed up story. You could find the results online. You could find videos of it on Google it, YouTube, Twitter, or I'm sorry, it's called X now. I still call it Twitter. So you have this guy, Raja Jackson, who's the son of Quinton Rampage Jackson, was at a independent pro wrestling show, right? And for those of you that don't watch pro wrestling, a lot of times they have gimmicked props. They will have things that they hit each other with, but it's part of the show. So they have it designed in a way where it looks like it makes an impact. It looks like it hurts, but it really doesn't. So
it's fake.
Right. So don't say the word fake. They'll lose their minds. It's a work. It's a gimmick. Anyway, in this situation, they actually had these gimmicked cans. It's like beer cans, soda cans. I can't make out exactly what it was, but it looks like an actual can of some type of beverage, and you could hit people with it, and apparently it's plastic, and it still has it, like it's meant to pop open easily, and it has liquid in it, so you can like grab it, hit someone with it, and it's going to make the sound, and it's going to look just like if I were to grab a beer can and smack in the head with it really hard, which would actually hurt, right? So you hit someone with it, it'll pop, fizz, and that's part of it. So Raja Jackson was talking to one of the pro wrestlers when they're like out in kind of this outside staging area, not inside where they're doing the matches later on in the ring. And they're having a little bit of back and forth. And the wrestler, this guy called Psycho Stu, got into a back and forth with Raja. And he honestly thought that Raja was part of the show. So he actually grabbed one of those cans and hits Raja in the side of the head with it, which doesn't hurt. You can even see on video, like it hits him. And Raja was kind of surprised by it. Now, to be fair, Raja didn't realize that, the other guy thought he was just part of the show. Stu didn't realize that he didn't realize he was part of the show. So it's basically a big misunderstanding. So he hits Raja with it, and it didn't hurt him, but it pissed him off because this guy was talking to me, talking trash in my face, then he hits me in the head with something. So now he's mad and wants to fight. And so some people broke them up, and then Stu realizes he messed up, realized, oh no, this guy is not part of the show. I thought he's part of the show. Let me apologize to him. And at first, Raja was not receptive to the apology. He was like, no, screw that. I'm going to fight and blah, blah, blah. And eventually, they were able to calm them down. So after a few attempts of Stu apologizing, Raja finally accepts his apology. They shake hands. They talk a little bit about it. It seems like everything's cool. And you see he apologized to him on camera at minimum 3 times. And they shake hands on it 2 of those times. And another wrestler comes up and was talking to him. He's like, hey, I have a good idea about how we could go ahead and really make this work for us. So there's no hard feelings between us. We could also make it like for the fans that saw this go down, we can make it part of the show. So later on, Stu's going to have a match. And then how about you go ahead and run in the match and like attack him, like just kind of a work, He
said, handle it in the ring.
Yes. Handle in the ring, but in a work manner, which means to like do it in a way that's part of the show, part of the gimmick. You're not going to go in and like actually hurt the guy. You go in and like fake fight him, basically like pro wrestlers do. So that's
I don't think that he told Raja that part.
Well, that's the understood language of it from the wrestler's perspective, basically is what I'm getting at. So Raja's like, yeah, we could do that. That sounds cool. And it seems like they were cool with each other. They shook hands on it, and it seems like there was no actual bad blood between each other after that. It seemed like they were cool. So flash forward a little bit. Later on that night, the match is happening. I'm assuming this happened last night at the time that I'm recording this, because whenever they show the clips of the aftermath of all this, he was outside talking on the phone, and it was like nighttime. So anyway, the match happens. Raja jumps to the ring, and no one stops him. The ref didn't freak out and stop him like they would normally do. This happens a lot where people jump into a wrestling ring and immediately people are on him to stop this, stop anything from happening. But because it was understood that he was going to be part of this show, part of the match, they didn't immediately stop him. So he goes into the ring as Psycho Stu knocks his opponent down, and then Raja just scoops him up in a giant double leg, lifts him over his head really, really high, and then slams him down as hard as he can, right on the back of his shoulder blade, neck, head area. Just kind of lands right there, hard enough to get immediately knocked unconscious. Then Raja proceeds to get into a mount and starts raining down nasty blows, punches, a few elbows, but mostly punches, just left, right, left, right, left, right, 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 right. Just goes to town on this guy, just punching him really, really bad, until a whole bunch of wrestlers realize, oh no, he's gone off script. We need to get him off of him, and they drag him off of him. And Psycho Stu had to go to the hospital. So the wrestling community is in an uproar because an MMA guy brutalized one of their guys over a misunderstanding, and it led to a real incident where someone got severely injured in a way that, honestly, in the eyes of the law, could be considered aggravated assault. So what do you think about that story, Roy?
I think it's a crazy story. There's a couple things that you didn't cover in it. On Raja's side, Rampage says that he's concussed from just a few days ago. Yeah. So that may have affected his judgment. Not saying that I think the guy's the brightest bulb in the socket to begin with, but that can definitely play a part.
Yeah.
And then Psycho Stu is actually a veteran with PTSD.
Yep.
And he uses the wrestling as a way to cope with what he's seen and what he's been through. So just throwing it out there, if anyone's, struggling mentally, don't resort to this kind of stuff. Get help. Right.
Because now this dude has to deal with repercussions of this, and this happened so recently that we don't know yet. I haven't seen anything listed yet on what's going to happen to him. It's too soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did know about the concussion thing that Rampage Jackson mentioned, and I did know that he was a veteran. I didn't cover every little detail. I just kind of went over what happened, the event itself. So I think I covered the important parts.
Patty inspired me to raise mental health awareness. So
Patty Pimblett?
Yeah.
That's good. That's nice. He's grown. He's grown on me. When he was first in the UFC, I kind of didn't care for him too much, but he grew on me. That's another story. But yeah, this is a nasty situation. If you're curious to see what happened, they actually have video footage of where they're talking outside, and then he hits him with the gimmick can. They have the little back and forth, the apologies. Then when he rushes the ring and attacks him, all this is on camera. You could see it. I will warn you, it's pretty brutal. When he gets on top of him, starts punching his unconscious head for a long time. It's pretty nasty. So
that's what happens when you don't have a real ref in the ring.
Right.
At least wrestling refs should be trained in case something goes wrong to intervene.
Right. I think, honestly, he was just stunned because, they knew he was going to be jumping in. It was expected he was going to go in for the work, right? But whenever he went off script, it almost like the ref was like, if you look at his body language, it was almost like he was stunned, what the hell is going on right now? And then when all the other wrestlers around realized, oh no, he's beating the heck out of Stu, they all took matters in their own hands. It took 5 guys or something like that. I don't know. I have to go back and watch the video and count again, but yeah, it took a lot to restrain him. I mean, a pro fighter against pro wrestlers, and a guy who's probably a concussion. Yeah, it's
not every pro wrestler is Brock Lesnar,
right?
And They're not expected to be,
right. And we're not here to like talk trash on pro wrestling. I'm actually a pro wrestling fan. That's why I'm using a lot of the insider language, like work and gimmick and shoot and stuff like that. But yeah, like they're not trained fighters, and especially when you catch a guy off guard, like Stu knew he was going to come in, so I don't think he was trying to defend himself anyway to begin with from getting at least scooped up and maybe taken down or something, because he's expecting something to happen. Because you can see when he gets scooped up by Raja at first, he kind of had a pretty normal, like business as usual expression about his face. And then when he got slammed, he didn't try to break fall or anything like that to protect himself on the way down. He got put down a lot harder than he expected to get put down, and unfortunately left him unconscious. And when you're unconscious, you can't defend yourself. So he was just at Raja's mercy, just get on top of him, just rain down some disgusting punches. So I'm pretty disgusted at it, to be honest with you.
I am too.
Yeah,
this should never happen.
It's full-blown aggravated assault and should result in prison time.
Yeah, there's no getting around it. Unless the concussion turns out to be something serious that would affect his judgment, this is just poor judgment all the way around. He shouldn't have. He should have known better, and he should have controlled his damn temper.
Yeah. After the fact, there's also another video out where it was like him on the phone with somebody. I don't know who it is, and he was like shouting, like, I'm sick of all these people doubting me and messing with me. He was just raging after the fact. So clearly, he's got some type of issues going on. You would expect, like, if there is a confrontation, we've all had it happen. I know you have and I have, where you get into a heated moment with somebody, you're mad, you want to fight them, you're thinking about it, you're shaking, and they talk to you and they calm things down. You're like, all right, look, we got it in hand. I'm sorry, let's shake on it. When that happens, that should be it. As a man, that should be it. And you know what? You don't even have to be cool with them afterwards. Like, if I have a problem with the guy because I feel he wronged me, and he's like, and I really just want to kick his tail, and he comes to me and apologizes and shakes my hand.
I'm going to let him off the hook.
Right. And you don't have to like him. I might not like him afterwards, and I might still go home like, that jerk, I can't believe, whatever. But I'm not going to wait a couple hours or however long it was and track the guy down later and then brutalize him. Like, that is just way over the line. And I don't even think a concussion can give you an excuse for that. It's just no excuse. So that's my take on it. That's the latest MMA news. We try to not only discuss the latest when it comes to what's happening in the cage, but also what happens outside the cage as it pertains to the world of mixed martial arts. So this being Quinton Rampage Jackson's son, a guy who's also a pro fighter himself. I don't know if he has a record or anything. I'd honestly never heard of him until today. But MMA fighter, this happening, that's definitely something we needed to discuss. So
yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you before we cut off, what's your prediction next week for Imavov versus Barilio?
Caio Barajo? I might be mispronouncing
yes.
So it's actually 2 weeks from now. Man, that's actually a pretty interesting card. I want Caio to win because I am a fan of the Fighting Nerds, more or less. Imavov is no joke. I know that these two guys are right on the cusp of title contention. The winner of this fight is probably going to be next in line to fight Khamzat Chimaev if they don't give it to Sean Strickland. Because I know, like, Strickland's like, I know he has this suspension going on, but I think he might be able to fight in other venues. And because he is a recent champion and has beef with Chimaev, they might kind of fast lane that one. But if not him, I think it's going to be the winner of this match. And I don't know, both are looking really good as far as their fight record. They're both on pretty good win streaks. Actually, Caio has not lost. Oh, he's only lost once in his career, and it was like his second fight ever. He hasn't lost in like 10 years. But Imavov his last name ends with OV, And that should tell you everything you need to know. I swear, anyone with a name like that, just like, oh no, like if I debut in an MMA organization, I don't know, I'm fighting an Imavov or a Magomedov or
anyone from Dagestan,
right, or anywhere in
Russia.
Dagestan. Yeah, Dagestan adjacent, Russia. But this guy, for the record, is Dagestanian. Dagestanian? Daggy?
Dagestani.
Dagestani. But as Sean Strickland says, a daggy. These daggies.
Strickland's so politically incorrect.
Sometimes it's funny, but yeah, Dagestani, Chechenian in Chimaev's case, just Russians in general, man. I don't know what it is with those guys. Let's see.
Now, you brought up Slap Fight earlier. Have you ever seen the Russian version of Slap Fight?
That's actually where I first saw it. So Power Slap, for those of you that don't know, Power Slap is actually new in the slap fighting scene. Slap fighting's been going around for years, and I've always thought it was the most ridiculous and stupid thing I've ever seen. And
I disagree wholeheartedly. The Russian version that introduced me to it was the greatest slap fight competition in the world.
I just think slap fighting is just, it's just below me, man. I just can't respect it in any way whatsoever. I just can't do it.
What's there not to respect? One man takes a slap. That is to be respected. Being willing to put your literal flesh on the line. You don't see MMA fighters just standing there with their chin out.
I like intelligent fighters, for the more or less, because there are a few idiots that I like as well. But I'm sorry, just taking a hit is just. I like to see good technical fighting, and there's not really. Oh, it's how there's a lot of technique in the way you twist your body and swing. No. I like to see proper technique. I just don't have any respect in that type of fighting. But bringing it back to this fight, Imavov versus Caio Barajo, that should be a really good fight because both are on a tear right now, and it does have title implications. There are other fights on this card that look pretty interesting too. Benoit Saint Denis fighting against Mauricio Ruffy. It looks like Ruffy, but I think it's probably pronounced Huffy. Another one, the Fighting Nerds, another guy in a really long winning streak. Benoit Saint Denis is kind of win some, lose some. He might be in the chopping block if he loses another match. So we'll see how that goes. And then you got, who else is on this card? We got
Mason Jones versus Balaji Oki. I don't know either of them.
Paul Craig's on this card. He's actually a really good jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's like the king of triangle chokes, fighting against a guy I've never heard of from Lithuania. So, yeah, it could be an interesting card. I think more than anything, that last fight is going to be the most interesting because of... I'm kind of surprised they're on a fight night. That fight belongs on a pay-per-view, but I understand that for fight nights, they usually try to give us like one pay-per-view worthy fight as the main event at least. So the winner of that should get a title shot. So that could be fun. Yep. So
all right.
That's basically it. I mean, I'd cover the rest of this card, but I don't really know much of these other people. Brad Tavares, I know his name. He's been fighting a long time. Long time. He's on that
really
card.
Tavares from The Ultimate Fighter?
Yeah. He's still fighting. He's on that card.
Wow, and he's still an undercard.
Yeah. How's he been doing? He's 21-10.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah. It's mediocre.
By decision, 14 of 21.
Yeah.
That's not going to get you main card worthy at all.
Right.
Losses by knockout, 5.
Yep. Losses by knockout if you're in Power Slap. Well, pretty much all of them. I think they have a decision system, but I don't know.
Yeah, they've got decisions in Power Slap. If you're able to take, you and your opponent are each able to take 3 good slaps without any penalties, and it comes out as a tie, well, I guess there has to be at least one penalty for it to be a tie. But
So you know too much about this. I don't respect enough to watch it to even know all that. So
it's addictive. Once you start watching one man slap another, what got me into it was How I Met Your Mother, the slap bet, and it was all downhill from there.
that show. That's a very hit or miss show as well. That's a very Johnny Walker show. It's very hit or miss.
Oh man, Johnny Walker, that poor guy, his hair is unfortunate. Somebody needs to tell that man that he can cut it.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I think it's about all I had to talk about. Covered the important fights from last night, the important fights for the card 2 weeks from now, the big news with Raja Jackson. It's all the main things we need to talk about today. Do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, just ready to see Tom Aspinall destroy Cyril Gane.
Yes. That's not the next pay-per-view. That's the pay-per-view after. But the next pay-per-view is probably the most stacked pay-per-view card of the year. We'll be discussing that whenever that comes closer. That's going to be in late September, I think. It's going to be a really fun card. But when we get close to that card, we'll have a podcast episode dedicated to covering all of that. We'll go over some predictions, who we think is going to win, and we'll do a recap afterwards. So anyway, thank you for joining us at the Ground and Pound podcast. My name is Vince, and I am joined by my very good friend Roy, filling in for Rick, who was not able to make it tonight. So Roy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Absolutely.
Anytime you want me, and just invite.
Oh, absolutely. I think probably wouldn't be harmful to have all three of us on at some point. Maybe you, me, and Rick. We could have an episode, especially for like a big event. Maybe when we do a recap, we could all talk about some stuff with it. So it'd be a really fun time. So
that would be excellent.
All that being said, I just want to let my viewers know that there are two things in this world that I really just cannot respect, and that is Raja Jackson because of his disgusting actions yesterday, and Power Slap. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on the Ground and Pound podcast. As always, I am Vince, joined by my special guest host, Roy, and we will see you next time.
Send him hate mail for the hate of Power Slap.
Yes, that'll be fun.